The crowded spaceport was all noise and motion, metallic footsteps echoing off steel walls, voices calling out in dozens of different tongues, the steady hum of starship engines in the hangar beyond. I was just another human trying to make it through, without bumping into anyone too strange or too dangerous. That was easier said than done on Vestor 9, the biggest trade hub between human and alien sectors. I had my hands in my jacket pockets, eyes down, weaving through the flow of travelers. That was when I felt it, a brief, soft touch against my fingers. It was nothing, just someone brushing past me in the press of the crowd. But then everything changed. A sharp, warm pulse shot my arm, like static and heat mixed together. My chest tightened. I stopped dead in the middle of the walkway, confused. Around me, the noise seemed to dull for a second, my senses narrowing to a single point. Her. She stood a few steps ahead, frozen just like me, her eyes wide and her hand half raised as if she could still feel the contact. Her skin was faintly luminous under the station's artificial lights, a pale violet shade that made her stand out even in this bizarre crowd. Her hair fell in soft waves the color of storm clouds, and her clothes were simple, travel-worn. She clearly wasn't rich or royal, but her gaze was locked on me with an intensity that felt almost unbearable. Her lips moved before sound came out. You. I blinked. Me? Then her eyes darted to the faintly glowing band around her wrist. It had been dull a moment ago, but now it pulsed wildly with a deep golden light, as if responding to something only she could understand. Her breathing quickened, and I saw her hands tremble. "Oh, no," she whispered, though her tone carried a strange mix of fear and wonder. "What's going on?" I asked, though part of me wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Her gaze flicked back to mine. That was not supposed to happen. I began, but she suddenly closed the distance between us. Not touching this time, just standing so close I could see the small flecks of silver in her irises. She studied my face like she was memorizing every detail. "You brushed my hand," she said softly, and my soulmate signal went wild. I stared at her. "You're what now?" She held up her wristband. "This is a binding detector. On my world, we're implanted with resonance markers at birth. When we come into contact with our true match, our bonded soulmate, it reacts. It's only supposed to happen once in a lifetime. And it just happened with you." I laughed once, awkward and disbelieving. There must be some mistake. She shook her head quickly, as if the idea of a mistake was impossible. "No, I've heard of false readings, but nothing like this. Look." She held the band close to me, and the golden pulse brightened even more, as though my presence was feeding it. My stomach turned over. "Well, congratulations, I guess." She didn't smile. Instead, she looked almost pained. "You don't understand. My people take this seriously. Once the signal goes off, it's binding. We're expected to," she faltered, "to begin the joining process immediately." I blinked at her. "Joining process? You mean like—" "Yes." She swallowed hard. "Marriage. Life bond. Everything." My mouth went dry. "Lady, I don't even know your name." "It's Lysira," she said. "And I didn't want this. Not now. Not like this." Her voice shook slightly, though she tried to keep her expression neutral. "But the signal, it doesn't care what we want." Around us, people kept moving, brushing past, but it felt like we were standing in a bubble where time moved differently. My brain scrambled for something rational. "Okay, so if you don't want this, can't we just ignore it?" Lysira's eyes darkened. "If I go home with an active soulmate signal and no partner, my family will disown me. My clan will think I rejected fate. And there are others who might try to claim you." "Claim me?" She nodded grimly. "If the bond's real, they'll see you as valuable. Some might even take you by force." That was not the direction I thought this conversation would go. She glanced around nervously, then reached for my arm. "We need to leave here. Now." Something in her tone made me obey without argument. She led me down a side corridor away from the main crowds, her grip firm. The heat from her hand seeped through my jacket, and I felt that strange pulse again, steady, warm, unsettling. We ducked into a quiet maintenance hallway. She released me, but her wristband still glowed like it was alive. I was only passing through Vestra 9. I had no intention of finding. She stopped, exhaling sharply. Of finding you. But the signal means we're already linked. I leaned against the wall, tried to wrap my head around this. You're saying fate just decided for us? Yes, and fate doesn't care about timing, distance, or species. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The low hum of the station filled the silence. I studied her, the guarded tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes flicked toward the hall like she expected trouble. She wasn't some dreamy romantic looking for love. She was scared. Okay, I said finally. What do you need from me right now? That seemed to surprise her. You're not running away? I shrugged. I don't exactly understand the soulmate stuff, but if you're telling me people might try to claim me, I'd rather stick with the person who actually touched my hand than some stranger. A small, reluctant smile tugged at her lips. You're strange for a human. I get that a lot. Her expression sobered. We'll need to get to my ship. Quietly. If anyone sees a signal, they'll know. The next hour was a blur of moving through dim corridors, avoiding security scans, and keeping our heads down. At one point, we passed a group of tall, armored beings who stared a little too long at us. Lysaira gripped my hand until they were gone, the golden glow under her sleeve almost painful to look at. When we finally reached the private docking bay, I let out a long breath. Her ship was small, sleek, and clearly built for speed. She motioned for me to board, and I hesitated at the threshold. You're sure about this? I asked. She looked at me with something that was almost defiance. The signal has already chosen. The only question is whether we face it together or apart. Something in my chest shifted. Maybe it was a strangeness of situation. Maybe it was the way she said together. But I stepped inside. The moment the hatch closed, she relaxed slightly, though the glow from her wrist still hadn't dimmed. We'll go to a neutral sector, she said. Somewhere safe, until we decide what to do next. I sat in the co-pilot's seat, watching her hands move expertly over the controls. You said this only happens once in a lifetime? Yes. She didn't look at me, and it never goes away. I thought about that. About how a single accidental brush of fingers in a crowded spaceport had just rewritten the rest of my life. And I wasn't sure if I was terrified or oddly okay with it. Because even now, I could still feel the warmth of her hand lingering against mine. And a part of me, deep down, wondered if fate might know what it was doing after all.